Hey, GN, depending on where you guys are, welcome to episode 3 of GMI. I'm Hardeep. Together with me is
Josh,
and
we're from the games team, and today we'll be figuring out if Big Time is gonna make it. It's gonna make it as a game in Web3, and actually, you know what? Web3, Web2, they're all games, right? So
Yeah.
So
GMI. So Josh, let's just recap a little bit. So what is GMI about?
Yeah, so GMI is actually just quite like just figuring out whether games are gonna make it in this space. Look, Web3 games are relatively new, right? And the question is of success. Are they going to hit mass market gamers? Will people actually play these games? Will people actually adopt some of these, NFTs, FTs, like non-fungible tokens and tokens as in-game assets? These are all big questions, and really good games take a long time to develop. But we've got quite a few that are coming and hitting the market actually pretty soon, or even right now, right?
Yep.
So
Cool. And I think Big Time has taken a really interesting approach over here as well, right? Big Time gonna be free to play. They've been in close early access beta for Jade, Diamond, and Silver Pass holders for about 3 months now. We've been playing a bunch of Big Time as well. I think cumulatively, the team at Path has over 30-40 hours of playing Big Time right now. We've been raiding those dungeons. We've been trying to get our hands on those NFTs. So how it works is you would raid a dungeon, and at the end of a dungeon, you'd have one boss that you have to kill, and then there is a certain amount of chance that killing that boss would drop an NFT of a certain rarity. And I think we've got a fair share of NFTs as well, right? Yeah. So
actually, we should just show an image of like what it looks like, and then maybe after the trailer, right? So this is exactly it. I mean, we'll show you the motion animation. We're just gonna talk through it a little bit. So you're playing a character. You've got 4 classes here. Actually, we should bring our guy on it. Like we should have it.
We should.
It's a lot easier, right? But before that, guys, Game Street code as always. So Game Street code number 1, Time Warrior. You can find it on the banner below. Game Street secret code number 1, Time Warrior, and in fact, it's related to the game. So check it out. It's a character class. Spoiler alert. But yeah, you know what? Enough with that. Roll the intro. Man, good stuff. Matt, welcome on board to GMI. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on today. That trailer really got me fired up. This is going to be awesome.
I know, right? Quick disclaimer to the community in the chat right now. Feel free to ask all sorts of questions. We're going to handpick 1 or 2 later during the conversation just to ask. And who better to represent? Matt, we've got you here. Dude, I am very curious. Let's do a quick introduction about yourself and a bit about Big Time, right? The inspiration, the creatives, what got you guys started?
And also, what games have you been playing growing up? Were you a big MMORPG guy yourself? Did you play?
I wasn't really a big MMO type person growing up, and sometimes I don't like answering this question because I don't want to age myself. I'm kind of the boomer of the group. No, I was more of like an FPS type person. I really liked. I'd say Halo was probably my number one game growing up.
Oh,
Oh, very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So for the game and its origins, we've actually been around for about 2.5 years. So it goes back to when Ari, who was the co-founder of Decentraland, left Decentraland and then started Big Time. That was in April of 2020. And then we've been in development since then. And then about 2 years later, we kind of came to market, had our alpha of our game, and really the genesis for the the reason why Big Time is a thing is we wanted to make a game that had a game first focus, um, as opposed to an NFT focus for why they
Right.
should start playing it in Web3. Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's all about the game.
Gotcha. I am then curious, right? Like, was Big Time slated to come into a Web3 game, or was it designated to be first a Web2 game? I mean, I know I'm making distinctions here, but was Web3 sort of part of the roadmap?
Always. So like I said, Ari was at Decentraland. He really believed in
Right.
blockchain and the ability it would give you to take more control over your ownership and your identity inside the game. So the ownership of the assets that you have, the things that you play, the things that you find, and then the identity. You should be able to have more control over your identity, almost taking it back from the businesses, and then eventually being able to move that identity across multiple platforms. And all of that is kind of contingent on blockchain. So, but there's a difference, right? Like when you talk about like Web3 games and blockchain games, they tend to look a certain way. And generally, when people talk about them, they tend to talk about the economy first. We want the first thing
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
talk about Big Time is the game. And that really is and always is going to be the most important part about Big Time is the game. We think that's really one of the big parts of a long-term success and stability of the game.
No, fair point. And I think having played the beta myself and people at Path as well, we realized that the focus has always been on making player onboarding as easy as possible. Like you don't want them coming on board having to sign up for a wallet, figure out how to get started, the whole user journey from getting started. You put in your email address, you get started, download the launcher, has been so seamless, so Web 2-ish, and that's a big part of what you kind of build early on as well, right? A big focus is making it as seamless as possible.
Absolutely. We think one of the main reasons why gamers have not migrated into Web3 in large numbers is because of the barriers to entry. And this is really more of a gamer discussion, but like when you look at the number of daily active users in large Web2 games, it's leagues and orders of magnitude higher than what's in Web3 games right now. So like Web2 games really have it kind of figured out. And so we try to bring that same level of intensity to Big Time. So it's not just a free to play game, so to
Yeah.
eliminate that financial barrier to entry, but it's also the ease of access. You can register for Big Time in about one click, and it takes about 15 seconds, 20 seconds if you have
Yeah.
slow internet. And then you can if you can download it right after that, you're really just relying on the internet speed. So really within clicking and then downloading it and playing it, you're within the game within about 4 minutes.
I love it. I love it. Could you, I mean, having been live for about 3 months now, could you just like run us through the metrics a little bit? How many people have taken part in the game? What has player feedback been thus far? Are they enjoying the game? What do they like? What do they don't like?
Yeah, so I think about 20,000 people have access to the game right now. I'm not sure about the exact number, in part because after we did our gold, silver, and jade passes, which we sold, we went to an invite only model. So that's what the ruby pass is. It's
Yeah.
by invite only, and you can either get it just from Big Time or from one of our trusted partners. We're at about 20,000 right now. And then from there, there's a separate forum. So we have our Discord and our Twitter, which anybody can have access to. But if you want access to our forums, that's where only players can post. And so we've gotten a
Yeah.
lot of feedback on the game because during this time we've released, I think, additional content about 3 or 4 times, some patches and bugs. I think overall the feedback has been good. People like it, and they've been pretty receptive to the fact that it's an alpha. And with an alpha, things are broken, things are missing, some things we've got to fix. There's like an understanding from our community. And what we've done, I think, a pretty good job of incorporating their feedback when they post things or when they write things or when they discuss things about how to make the game better. We take that, we give it to our developers, we work with them, and then we try and find a solution for it.
I'm curious, right? What has been sort of the biggest challenge for Big Time in making this game, and I guess in working with the community as well?
I would say two parts. From the community engagement perspective, the hardest part has been convincing Web 2 gamers that this is a Web 3 game they would enjoy. Um, Especially people who have large followings on Twitch or are very successful inside of other games. It's actually
Yeah.
pretty challenging to tell them, like, hey, we want you to try Big Time. And not because they don't like the gameplay, in part because they hear the words NFTs or blockchain and they're like, I want nothing to do with that. And that's been a challenge because that's ultimately a lot of players out there. And that's unfortunate because they don't even want to hear about the upsides of the gameplay. As soon as they hear these kind of buzzwords, they don't want to pay attention anymore. But we're getting
Right.
better at it, particularly when we explain what the benefits are. I think from a development standpoint, one of the hard parts is balancing the community's desire for kind of new and a steady stream of content with what our developer capabilities are. So our devs are great, but we only have a finite number of them. I think we've got
Yeah.
like maybe 30 in total or so. There's somewhat of a cap on like how much we can develop and then put it out there and make sure that it's well balanced and tested and looks good and adds to the storyline. And that's hard because the community always craves new content. They're like, hey, this and this and this and this should all be better. Why haven't you guys fixed it yet? It's like, well, we're in alpha and we need a little bit more time. That's always been pretty a difficult discussion.
Yeah, damn, I can imagine. Actually, I am curious, like it must, like, I mean, from alpha to full build, right? And I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a full build, right? Because there's always bugs to fix here and there.
Yeah.
How should gamers sort of adjust their expectations? Like whether it's Web3 or not, like just in games. Does it take multiple years, or for a game like Big Time, I don't know, when is there a rough gauge as to when they can actually experience like longer forms of content versus, the alpha right now? Or is there an expected timeline, I guess, as part of the roadmap or something?
3 years
3 years.
2 years.
is kind of the minimum. If you can, I think, come up with a AAA game that's from conception to release of the full version of the game, I think is 3 years. And I think anything under that, you're going to run into a couple other things. And kind of like a non-prioritized order, you're going to have something that's not really like a game. It's probably more of an economy focus, or it's going to have a relatively simple amount of content, or it's going to have a lot of bugs. And 3 years is kind of the minimum for some of the larger AAA games that we all kind of identify with, something like GTA, Red Dead Redemption. Those projects generally have a $200 to $500 million budget, and they take 5 years to come out. So it's a long, long, long time. So that's kind of on the longer end of things. 3 years, I think, is about as short as you can get to a high quality AAA rated game, though.
All right, no, interesting. So I'm just very curious because I still play a lot of Big Time, and I'm super curious that a lot of viewers at home as well are probably have this question in their head right now. What are the next big milestones moving forward for Big Time?
The next big one for us is when all space holders can enter the game and start setting up their space. So
we've got a lot of spaces. We've
awesome.
got a lot of spaces. I mean, like you said, it's been 6 months, 8 months since like the first spaces sale.
Yeah.
I mean, and we want to make use of our spaces, Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're finally going to be able to do it. So that's next. I don't have an exact date, but it's probably in a couple months or so, where you're going to be able to go in, start setting up your space, connecting it, customizing the layout, changing the appearance of it, and all that stuff. So that's going to be good. And then after that, we'll do an invite-only beta where users can invite in a finite number of other players into the game. We'll release Epic City as a additional place for people to play, like an additional world, and then after that will be our open beta.
Actually, that's really interesting. But I'm curious, right? Looking back at the past 8 months since that Spaces sale that you guys did, looking back, would you have done it differently? I get the reason for doing an NFT sale. The whole point of it was to fundraise and everything, but 8 months of not of holders of spaces not being able to do anything with their spaces. Would you go back and think, okay, no, maybe perhaps kind of tie it closer towards the beta, have some sort of utility over there as well, so that players don't have to wait 8 months. And there's not a lot of speculation on the secondary side of things as well.
No, that's a
Thoughts?
great question. I think part of it is to realize like this isn't the initial timeline we wanted either, or at least certainly not the one we talked about. And some of it was responding to the economy. I mean, that's a big part of it. Um, so like I think when we initially started our early access, we said global launch would be in July, August timeframe, and realistically, it's closer to 2023 now. Although we will increase like a significant number of features and content inside the game, that full launch is quite a bit farther to the right on the calendar than what we initially thought. There's two things I'd kind of bring up on that one. One, the economy changed. It's just not a great time to launch a game, and so like we had to keep that in mind of like the people, whatever those kind of like Web3 type people who were like, hey, I'm just playing this just for a very extractive value reason, are just not out there in the same numbers that they were before. And so we had to kind of change the layout, not so much of the game, but a lot more of like the economy in our marketing to make sure that we can still bring in a lot of users. In part because those first 2 weeks are make or break it for a game, right? You've seen so many games that have onboarded, had great marketing campaigns, and then 2 weeks later they lose most of their users. We can't do that. We have to make sure when we launch it, it's successful. And so, like I said, the economy was one portion of that decision. Um, the other part is taking feedback from our community. We had to make some changes based on what they saw. They weren't significant, but they were enough that we were like, okay, well, let's take this in a slightly different direction. And so when we talk about like, hey, the full launch to get to this point, they need this, we need this, we need this. We're going to meet most of that with the additional releases in the space release and the invite only beta, which were not part of our initial timeline. So they get that content they were asking for and hoping for, anyways.
Gotcha. Actually, you mentioned about the economy, right? Maybe just to give some context to our gamers and a bit about Big Time. I know we sort of got deep into the details here, but as a gamer, and I'm playing Big Time right now. I mean, some of them have played the game, some of them have seen the trailer, but maybe walk us through if I haven't actually seen any of this, right? What kind of game is it? What's the progression like? What's the end game? And I guess people talk about NFTs and digital asset ownership or items, right? Where am I going to get the items? What's these item for? Economy, a little bit about that, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so the game is like a blend of World of Warcraft and Diablo. So you spawn in a large world, and that's where you can find other players to play with. And then as you roam this large world, there are these large purple doors scattered throughout, and they're only there for a random amount of time. They're not set. And when you drop into those doors, they're entryways into a dungeon. That dungeon, you can either solo it or you can have up to 6 people. That's where the combat starts. That's where the missions start and side quests. If you're successful, they take about 15 minutes to complete. But as you beat mobs and bosses in that part of the game, that's where the NFTs drop. That's where you can, the higher level you are or the more challenging the dungeon it is, then the more NFTs drop proportionally speaking and the more rare they are.
Gotcha. Okay, good stuff. And like, people talk about economic balancing in games. It's pretty common. And it's common in MMORPGs. I think it's just now being more of a talked term in Web3. But how are you thinking about economy balance in Big Time?
The number one thing is that it contributes positively to the gamer experience. It's gotta make the game more fun and more enjoyable. And a big part of that is you want players to stay inside of the game, to keep their assets inside of the game as opposed to using it as a method of extraction. And so
Mm,
really the economy is aimed at people who really value games and their game experience and their lives inside of the game. And that's kind of challenging for some people, I think, to understand that aren't as familiar with it. But I mean, for a lot of this audience, they play games for multiple hours a day. Their identity is inside the game, and they really value what they can do inside of the game. And so for things like being able to change your appearance, that's important. That's important to them. They're like, I'm playing this for 3 hours a day. I almost want a peacocking signal that that's important to me. So that's number one. Make it something that it contributes positively to the economy. Number two, it's got to be sustainable. There's a lot of talk of like sinks or liquidity pools and stuff like that. Generally speaking, the goal is like refer back to point number one, which is like, does this help players stay inside the game? Does this help them like if we release a token, are there sufficient ways for them to use it inside the game that enhances their experience? So I think between those two factors, those are the things we try and keep in mind.
Right. And from my understanding of Big Time's current beta economy is that you guys don't have a token, right?
Not yet.
I don't know if that is going to change down the line. I think from what I've heard, that might be the case. Might be introduction of a token, something like that. And in the Web2 traditional game world, if you're building an MMORPG, I'm thinking of the likes of like New World, Albion Online, ESO. All of these games have, even in the Web2 world, in closed economies, have had some issue with token inflation and in-game currency deflation and inflation. Right, you've had developers that have to come in and like shut down servers because people were farming too much of a particular asset. You know, it's already challenging in Web 2, right? And is the solution in Web 3 not to have a token at all? I mean, like, is that a viable option? And kind of just go down the NFT route, like kind of like how Big Time does it right now. You let people farm, grind, and then you put value in terms of character personalization, item personalization, and what keeps you in, like you said, is like the NFT and the items that you have, as opposed to trying to make a game that caters to farmers, grinders, and like traditional MMORPGs.
It's a good question. I wouldn't be so bold as to say that what we've come up with is the best answer, um, right? And it's like the end all be all. But I think what we've done is good. So we will have a token, although we don't have one now. So it's different in that there's no IDO, there's no ICO. You have to play the game in order to get it. Not even the CEO is going to have a token unless he plays
Got
the
it.
game. So that's quite a bit different in and of itself. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and then the second thing is that the way the main benefits of the token is that it is the key ingredient for crafting and making your own NFTs. And then two, it unlocks certain in-game features. So like possibly extra areas you can play, um, stuff like that. Almost similar to what you'd see with the currency inside of like Fortnite. And you know, I think the each game kind of went in a different direction with how they raised funds initially. Some of them went with a token sale and had one that was tied to governance. For us, we use land in that perspective. That's a pretty novel concept. We Land has been around obviously in the metaverse for a while.
Yeah.
However, the most successful kind of programs so far have been breeding ones. Breeding programs as like the basis for their characters. So we went in a slightly different direction. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, I think that our economy is pretty light. I think it's
Yeah.
something pretty familiar to Web 2 people. And I think, broadly speaking, it's going to be more attractive to bringing in a lot of Web 2 users into the game.
Interesting take indeed. Can I also drill down a little bit on what I've been seeing a lot on crypto Twitter lately,
Yeah.
which is open loot.
Yeah.
Could you just like summarize it, like you've been about 10 years old, trying to understand our community? What is open loot today?
Great description. Okay. So making a game is hard, and making an enjoyable game is 50% of the battle. The marketing, the marketplace, the economy, everything else, that's the other 50%. And just because you have a great game doesn't mean you're going to be successful and have a lot of players. That other 50% that's not game development is what Open Loot helps Web2 companies do. So we have a super experienced team, not just in blockchain, but on marketplace, development, e commerce, the works. that's what we're helping other prospective and small Web2 games develop. And so it's an application you apply, and if we think the game has merit or there's good synergies, then we'll set up a partnership there.
Got it. So you're building an ecosystem to help onboard traditional Web2 games over to Web3. Perhaps from what I read as well, help them do initial NFT sales, get them on board, get them started, and everything. And I'm very curious, right? So what powers the ecosystem at OpenLoot? Is that are games coming in? Will they have independent economies, or will they perhaps use like one token under the OpenLoot ecosystem? And then I'm super curious how would this work?
So they're going to have independent ecosystems, at least for the initial generation of games that we're bringing on. So we've partnered with 3, and we actually just did an AMA with one of them last night called War Park. So right now they are independent economies, and part of that is we didn't want to constrain the creativity of the development team. Like we think what we do really well, among other besides games, are developing things like marketplaces and helping teams raise funding and then come to market. We think we're really good at that. We don't want to impose too much on how they make their game. So there's not going to be a unifying token, but there is going to be a unifying marketplace, and it's going to be one that's specifically for gamers. And that marketplace is called OpenLoot. So OpenLoot is the company, but the shared marketplace is also called OpenLoot.
Gotcha. All right. So we're now going to segue quickly to the AMA portion. We're going to pick out some questions. I mean, feel free if you spot anything that you want to answer. I'm just going to eyeball it, and we're going to find some, maybe just, I do see a couple that are popping out. Actually, one common theme is about specifications, right? So let me just choose between these
This is
two.
interesting.
Okay.
Let's try that.
Yeah. Okay. So 8:51 p.m. Deuce Reg. Look, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, but yeah, Deuce Reg, 8:51 p.m. I heard from a friend that Big Time did a massive round raise with VCs last month. That's good for development runway, right? I mean,
And if that happened, I wasn't there for it. No. Short answer is I don't think we did. I'm not in every meeting, but I feel like I'm tied enough into Big Time that I would have heard if there was a big round raise. When we talk about kind of runway and stuff, we did release this on the OpenLoot website over between September and August. We raised about $110 million in NFT sales. So we had raised previously in our Series A. I think there was a bunch of mainstream media articles about it. We raised about 22 million from that. But the 110 plus million in NFT sales is what is kind of what got us here and what allows us to kind of continue building through the bear as well.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Another question, common theme here. Alexander Nada and actually Daniel Ramirez. This is actually a minute before. So what technical specifications must my PC have in order to play Big Time?
Yeah, so the best answer for this, if you're just seeing this recording and want to go check it out again, we have a wiki page, wiki.bigtime.gg. But on there we lay out our specifications. So GeForce GTX 1060 or Radeon 580 or better. You need 8 gig of RAM, DirectX 11 or above. You need an Intel iCore 4430, and then at least 10 gig of additional drive space.
Damn, dude, Matt, I think you're like walking Big Time wiki. Shit, I probably wouldn't have remembered that, but damn, good stuff. All right. Let me see. Another question. Just scrolling through, but my
About OpenLoot.
Right, so 8:57 p.m. Jansen Tang. But my question is, if OpenLoot is using Big Time resources and funds, shouldn't the owners of Big Time token/spaces also own the upside of OpenLoot?
Ooh, interesting.
You do. I mean, the marketplace on Big Time is going to transition to be an OpenLoot marketplace. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Got it.
All right. And dude,
One more question, right?
one more question. Yeah.
Come on, guys. This is your chance.
Well, this-
throw into questions.
Geez, dude, man, our community is hardcore on like all this economic stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Should I just pick this one out? Okay, cool. Actually, this is maybe a hot topic, right? Ginger Beer Man, 8:40 p.m. How would you prevent an economic collapse, as in guilds or whales doing massive dumps on the coin, or I guess NFTs, right? I mean,
Interesting
assets, right?
question
In-game
indeed.
assets, yeah.
All right. It's a good question. Well, there's a couple ways to kind of go about that. Number one, we sold space back in December. We sold 10% of the space, so 60,000 unique space to 22,000 unique users. So it's actually quite well spread out. We did some other stuff in terms of the terms of our purchases with some of the larger guilds, like YGG and Avocado, the guys that bought in during that initial guild round sale. And they were really committed to the long-term vision of Big Time too. So like we kind of understand it, that they were here for a long time, and like that was the way Big Time was built, and that in some ways meant compromising a little bit on the marketing of it as a short-term pay-to-win game, or excuse me, play-to-win game. Right? We don't even call ourselves that. We'd say we're play and earn. So we really believe that a lot of people share our vision, particularly the ones who kind of bought in with a lot of space. In terms of like actual direct intervention into the economy, I'm not sure exactly what that would look like. In part because we're in a relatively simple part of our economy right now. But I think the main thing we would do is whatever that reason is going to happen for a somewhat fundamental reason. So if somebody is like, I don't think Big Time's a good game, I don't think it's gonna make it or something like that. And a lot of that we can kind of address by being forthright and open. We're fully doxxed. Like we're over doxxed. Every single person inside the game has a photo on the Big Time website, and it's like a lot of photos. And so like we're not. I think we've been pretty clear and open and honest. And so normally when I've seen like big dumps or something like that, there's a big position in the economy that people don't like. And I think we've done a very sincere effort at showing like we're here for a long time, a good game, and very much focused on like high quality user experience. And that tends to alleviate a lot of the concerns that would cause a dump.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Community, they want to get in, they want to play the game Big Time. How do they get an access right now? Invite only? How should they get an invite?
There's a couple ways. The fastest way to definitely get into the game soon is by getting space. So if you go to nft.bigtime.gg and get space, then you're going to be in the game very, very shortly. And then after that, like honestly, happy to kind of have more discussions from there. The main way is if you go and you register at Big Time and then you get space, that's the fastest guaranteed way into the game. The other part is just be active in our community. Go to the Twitch streams, come to our AMAs, like us, follow us, all of that stuff. And then we normally do some pretty cool giveaways during those times as well.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it, dude. That actually concludes our session with GMI. Matt, it's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much. You guys are clearly super smart. You have a super engaged community, and man, this has been one of the coolest AMAs I've been a part of. So kudos to you and your team for putting together such a professional looking product here.
Dude, appreciate it, man. All right,
Yeah.
cheers.
All right, see you.
Hi guys.
Have a good day, Matt.
See you, Matt.
Good stuff. Really good stuff.
Really
Dude,
good stuff, dude.
I'm excited. I'm excited to try the coming iterations. I'm pretty sure there's more updates coming on the way.
Definitely.
Like you said,
Yeah.
more content, more dungeons to raid.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And I think the key here is also patience, right? Like if you're looking for a good game product, and like look, guys, gamers, right? We've been waiting for like really sick games, really good games for the longest of time. The ones that that's it. It just takes time. So in the meantime, you've got a bunch of other games to play. So you can play that first.
Yeah.
When this comes out, I think it's going to be a good sort of big shebang, right? And one, I think that'll do huge justice to the space. Like I've already been seeing on Twitter, like everyone talks about Big Time. Good stuff, right? That's it, guys. We should do a GS code, secret code number 2 to end it, right? Shadowblade. GS secret code number 2 in the banner below. Shadowblade. We should do like one of these ASMR stuff. It's, you know what I mean?
I don't think I have the voice for that, but you on the other hand, dude, go for it, dude.
I think you should do it. I think you should do it.
I don't think so, dude.
Okay. Well, big thanks again to Matt for coming onto the stream, and really looking forward to seeing more about.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today on episode 3 of GMI. Make sure to follow us on our socials, Twitter, Discord. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well, so you don't miss any more GMIs or any other content we have. It's been great talking to you guys. Feel free to hit Josh or myself on Twitter if you want to talk to us as well. And leave in the comment section, right?
Yeah.
Who else do you want us to bring on board?
Yeah. Who else? Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't know anyone, let us know. We'll show you the whole list of the team. We'll pull them on board. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm camera shy," but nah. It's for the community.
Maybe we could have Jensen and Vicky do GMI episode 4. I'm pretty sure you're sick of these faces by now.
Yeah.
We've done so many already. Let's get the founders to do one.
Let's do it for the next episode. Okay, cheers. Take care. Good night or good morning, depending where you're from, and have a good one.
See you.
See you.